Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Science Channel. Tonight, we'll be exploring some of the most majestic creatures on our planet. They live in a world shaped by memory, movement, and immense power. A world where the ground carries messages, where families are guided by their elders, and where intelligence hums in the air. Elephants are not only the largest land animals on Earth, they are storytellers of survival, keepers of ancient wisdom, and the quiet guardians of the landscapes they move through. As we explore these beautiful animals, you'll discover they are far more fascinating than you could have imagined. They have an intelligence similar to ours, but in many ways more subtle, emotional, and wise. Not just in what they do, but in how they remember, how they connect, and how they shape the world around them. They are powerful, yet patient. It's as if their gentle presence invites you to slow down and simply listen. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, there is nothing you need to do but relax. As you settle in, feel your shoulders soften. Notice your eyes grow heavy. And as the day begins to gently fade away, join me as we explore these wonderful creatures together. Let's begin. An elephant's trunk contains thousands of muscles and moves with stunning precision. It looks almost impossible that one body part could do so much. With the same long column of flesh, an elephant can tear grass from the ground, lift a heavy branch, spray mud over its back, pull fruit from a tree, or curl the tip around something as small as a coin. There are no bones inside, yet it is strong enough to shift logs and delicate enough to explore the world like a hand, a nose, and a living tool all at once. The very tip is especially remarkable. African elephants have two finger-like projections there, while Asian elephants have one. Those tiny differences shape how they grasp objects. Calves take time to master it, and often look clumsy at first, like children learning what their own fingers can do. By adulthood, that flexible instrument becomes one of the most extraordinary pieces of anatomy anywhere in the animal kingdom. Elephant families are led by grandmothers who can remember danger for decades. At the heart of many herds stands an older female whose value cannot be measured by strength alone. She leads because she remembers. Over a long life, she may have survived droughts, found distant water, recognized risky places, and learned which paths are safest when the land turns harsh. That memory can protect everyone around her. Studies have shown that older leaders are often better at judging threats and responding to unfamiliar situations. A family following an experienced matriarch may waste less energy, avoid more danger, and make smarter choices when conditions become difficult. In landscapes where rain fails and food becomes scarce, memory becomes a survival tool as real as tusks or muscle. What looks from far away like a group walking across open country may actually be a moving archive, guided by an elder whose mind carries years of knowledge that younger elephants have not yet had time to gather. Elephants greet each other with rumbles so deep, humans often cannot hear them. Not every conversation happens in the range of human hearing. Elephants produce low-frequency calls that sink beneath what our ears easily detect, and those sounds can travel over long distances through air and even through the ground. To another elephant, a distant family member may not be missing at all. They may already be in touch. These rumbles can help coordinate movement, maintain social bonds, and announce identity across space that would seem enormous to us. Researchers have recorded moments when elephants responded to calls from far beyond the visible horizon, turning, pausing, or moving with sudden purpose. The result is a social world that stretches far wider than it first appears. A herd standing in silence may not be silent in any meaningful sense. Beneath the stillness, there may be a steady exchange of information, reassurance, and recognition, carried on waves so deep that the human listener misses most of the conversation. An elephant's foot is so soft and silent it can sneak through forests. For an animal that can weigh several tons, the foot is a masterpiece of quiet engineering. Underneath lies a thick pad of fatty, fibrous tissue that compresses under pressure and helps spread body weight across a broad surface. That does two important things at once. It protects the joints from constant impact, and it softens each step so the animal can move with surprising silence. In dense forest, that matters. A body the size of a truck does not always announce itself before it arrives. People working in elephant country sometimes describe the uncanny moment when one appears nearby with almost no warning, as though a huge shape has materialized from the trees. The foot also gives grip and stability on uneven ground, mud, and slopes. Quiet movement is not a trivial detail. It helps with travel, energy use, and social coordination, and it adds to the strange elegance that makes elephants feel so much more than simply large. Elephants can find water hidden beneath dry riverbeds using memory and smell. In harsh seasons, when a river looks empty and the surface has turned to dust, an elephant may still know where water waits below. That knowledge can come from experience passed through years of travel, but it also depends on keen senses. Smell helps detect moisture and vegetation patterns that hint at hidden reserves. Then comes action. Elephants may dig into sandy riverbeds with feet, trunks, or tusks until water begins to seep upward. What follows is one of the most remarkable parts. Other animals often benefit too. Once a hole is opened, birds and mammals can drink from a source they could never have reached alone. In dry landscapes, this can make elephants crucial providers in moments of scarcity. What looks like a simple act of thirst can become an ecological gift. They do not just survive difficult country. They unlock it, revealing resources concealed beneath the ground and turning memory into something life around them can use. Their ears do far more than hear. They help cool the whole body. The ears of an elephant are not just striking to look at. They are part of a tooling system built for life in warm climates. Inside those broad surfaces runs a dense network of blood vessels close to the skin. When an elephant flaps its ears, air moves across them and helps release heat from the blood before it circulates back through the body. In this way, the ears act almost like living radiators. This is especially important for such a large animal because large bodies hold heat well and can struggle to lose it. The difference between species tells its own story. African elephants, which often live in hotter and more open environments, usually have larger ears than Asian elephants. The shape suits the climate. So when you see an elephant slowly fanning the air around itself, you are watching physiology in motion. That graceful movement is part of how a giant keeps from overheating under a fierce sun. A trunk can uproot a tree branch, then pick up a single berry. Few things show elephant control more vividly than the way force changes from one moment to the next. The same trunk that can wrench loose a stubborn branch can also explore a fragile object without crushing it. That means strength is not simply switched on at full power. It is measured, adjusted, and guided with astonishing care. Watch an elephant feeding, and you begin to see this constant calibration at work. A clump of grass is gathered. Dust is blown away. A fruit is tested. A mouthful is delivered. At times, the trunk works almost like a hand feeling its way through the world. At other times, it behaves more like a crane, a hose, or a lever. Engineers study movements like these because they reveal how softness and power can exist together in one flexible structure. It is not only impressive anatomy, it is precision under pressure, performed again and again with effortless grace. Their skin looks tough, yet it is sensitive enough to feel tiny insects. From a distance, elephant skin can seem almost armor-like, thick, wrinkled, and built to resist a hard world. Yet that rough surface hides remarkable sensitivity. Elephants can detect small irritations, react to biting flies, and respond to delicate touch from another elephant with great precision. This matters because skin is not just a barrier. It is a sensory map spread across a huge body. Wrinkles help hold mud and water, which can cool the skin and offer some protection from sun and insects. Sparse hairs may also assist with sensation and temperature control. The result is a surface that is both durable and responsive, shaped by heat, dust, contact, and constant movement through demanding habitats. So when an elephant tosses soil over its back or flaps mud across its sides, that is not random decoration. It is body care, insect defense, and environmental adaptation working together through one of the most remarkable skins in nature. African and Asian elephants are close relatives, but strikingly different animals. At a glance, many people imagine an elephant is simply an elephant. Look a little longer and the differences become fascinating. African elephants usually have larger ears, a more concave back, and in many populations, both males and females can carry tusks. Asian elephants tend to have smaller ears, a more arched back, and females often lack prominent tusks or have only small tushes. The head shape differs too. Asian elephants often show twin domes, while African elephants more often present a single rounded profile. Even the tip of the trunk is not the same. African elephants usually have two finger-like projections, while Asian elephants have one. These differences are not cosmetic trivia. They reflect separate evolutionary paths and different ecological pressures. Once you learn to notice them, the two lineages stop feeling like variations on a theme. They become distinct expressions of elephant life, each shaped by its own landscapes, history, and way of surviving. Elephant calves can stand soon after birth, yet stay dependent for years. The beginning of elephant life is full of urgency. The newborn needs to get upright quickly, because in the wild, a vulnerable calf cannot remain on the ground for long. Within a surprisingly short time, those wobbly legs are working, even if balance still looks uncertain and a little comical. But standing early does not mean growing up fast. Quite the opposite. Elephant childhood stretches on for years, and that long dependence is one of the great keys to elephant society. A calf must learn how to move with the herd, whom to follow, what to fear, where to feed, and how to read the moods and signals of others. Milk provides nourishment, yet social learning provides something just as vital. A young elephant is not merely growing a body. It is being shaped into a member of a complex world. Survival depends not only on strength, but on time, guidance, and patient instruction. Elephant herds can carry ancient survival knowledge across many generations. Some animals inherit survival mostly through instinct, but elephants also inherit it socially. A calf is born into a network of older minds and moving bodies that already know routes, rhythms, dangers, and seasonal patterns. Over the years, young elephants absorb where to travel, whom to trust, when to move, and how to respond when conditions change. This creates something that feels almost like culture. Knowledge does not vanish with one season. It is carried in living memory from older elephants to younger ones, then tested again on real ground. Scientists studying migration and habitat use have found that disruption to older age groups can damage this transfer of knowledge in lasting ways. Losing experienced individuals does not only shrink a population, It can erase guidance that took decades to build. That makes a herd more than a collection of animals. It becomes a chain of memory, stretched across generations, with each life helping the next one survive. Some elephant calls travel farther than many people realize is possible. Distance works differently when a voice is built from very low sound. Under the right conditions, elephant calls can travel for several kilometers through open landscapes, reaching listeners far beyond what seems plausible for an animal hidden by distance and terrain. This does not mean every call always carries that far. Wind, vegetation, temperature, and background noise all matter. Yet when conditions align, an elephant can broadcast presence over a range that transforms how we think about herd life. Animals that appear isolated may actually be part of a much wider acoustic community. A female calling across the savannah may not be speaking only to the companions beside her. She may be announcing herself to distant relatives, nearby rivals, or roaming males outside human sight. That gives elephant society a scale we do not always appreciate at first glance. The horizon is not the end of their world. Often, it is only the visible part of it. Elephants can tell one human language apart from another by sound alone. One of the most startling discoveries in elephant research came from experiments with human voices. In parts of Africa, elephants live near different groups of people, and some groups have posed greater danger to them than others. Researchers played recordings of human speech and found that elephants responded differently, depending on which language was spoken. They were not simply reacting to the presence of a human sound. They appeared able to distinguish between categories of people associated with different levels of threat. In some cases, the reaction was stronger to voices from groups known historically for more dangerous encounters. That suggests a fine-tuned ability to read meaning from subtle acoustic cues. For an elephant, language may not be words in the human sense, yet voices still carry valuable information. This is astonishing because it shows a wild animal listening past noise and sorting human diversity in a way many people would never expect from a non-human mind. A herd can spread out widely, yet still stay in constant contact. An elephant family does not have to move as a tight cluster to remain socially connected. In open habitat, individuals may fan out across a broad area while feeding, each focused on its own patch of vegetation. To a human observer, it can look as though the group is drifting apart, yet social cohesion remains active all the while. Soft calls, body orientation, scent, and attentive listening help keep everyone linked across space. Calves can wander within limits because they are embedded in a field of awareness created by older elephants. Adults monitor one another without dramatic displays. A shift in pace from one animal can ripple across the group. A low sound can draw members together again. This flexible spacing has real advantages. It allows the herd to make use of scattered resources without losing coordination or safety. What seems loose is often highly organized, a moving balance between individual freedom and collective attention. Elephants sometimes sleep standing up, but deep sleep usually happens lying down. For a creature so large, even rest comes with special rules. Elephants can doze while standing, especially when they feel secure enough to relax but not ready to become fully vulnerable. That kind of light sleep is useful because getting down and rising again take effort, and in the wild, a quick response can matter. Yet the deepest stages of sleep usually happen only when an elephant lies down. That means true rest may require a setting with enough safety, space, and confidence for the animal to lower its huge body to the ground. In captivity, observers have often seen longer lying sleep than in more dangerous environments. In the wild, patterns can vary with age, habitat, and local risk. It is a reminder that sleep is never just sleep. It reflects trust in the surroundings. Even unconsciousness must be negotiated carefully when your body is immense and your world is not always safe. Their enormous brains support memory, social learning, and remarkably flexible behavior. The elephant brain is among the largest on land, but size alone is only the beginning of the story. What matters more is what that brain seems able to do. Elephants remember routes, recognize many individuals, adjust to changing conditions, and learn from both success and failure. They can solve practical problems, respond to social tension, and shift behavior when circumstances demand something new. This flexibility is one reason elephant life feels so compelling. They are not trapped in a narrow script. They navigate a changing world with judgment. Their brains also include structures linked to complex processing, and researchers have pointed to features that may help explain empathy, social awareness, and decision-making. We should be careful not to turn them into furry humans with trunks, because they are something far more interesting than that. They are elephants, equipped with minds shaped for long lives, rich relationships, and challenges that reward experience over impulse. Elephant tusks are actually giant teeth that keep growing through life. What most people picture as weapons are really overgrown incisors, the same basic category of tooth that in us would sit at the front of the mouth. In elephants, those teeth erupt outward and continue growing for years, carrying a record of life in layers much like tree rings can preserve seasons. Tusks can strip bark, dig into earth, pry apart roots, move obstacles, and serve in contests between rivals. They are tools before they are ornaments. They are history before they are ivory. Because they grow over time, damage and wear tell stories about age, behavior, and habitat. A heavily worn tip may speak of digging, feeding, or repeated use against hard surfaces. A broken tusk can change how an animal handles the world from then on. Once you know they are teeth, not horns, the head of an elephant becomes even stranger and more astonishing than it first appears. Some elephants are left tuskless by evolution, not injury or old age. Not every elephant grows the long ivory curves people expect. In some populations, especially where intense ivory hunting has killed large numbers of tusked individuals, tuskless elephants have become more common. That shift matters because it shows evolution unfolding on a timescale humans can notice. When poachers remove animals with the most valuable tusks, they also remove many of the genes linked to producing them. The survivors are more likely to pass on a different pattern. Yet this is not a simple advantage. Lacking tusks may help an elephant avoid being targeted, but tusks are useful in daily life. They help with digging, stripping bark, and moving through habitat. So the rise of tusklessness can be a biological signal of heavy human pressure written directly into the bodies of the next generation. It is a stark reminder that evolution is not always ancient and distant. Sometimes it is driven by violence in the present. Elephants can recognize themselves in a mirror, which few animals can do. When researchers placed a large mirror in front of an elephant, they did not just see curiosity. They saw something rarer. At first, the animal explored the reflection like it might be another elephant. Then, the behavior changed. Instead of greeting the image, she began using the mirror to inspect parts of her own body that she could not easily see without help. In one famous test, a visible mark was placed on her head. She touched the mark on herself, not on the mirror. That matters because it suggests a level of self-awareness that only a handful of species have shown convincingly, including great apes, dolphins, and magpies. It does not mean an elephant thinks exactly like a human. It means the mind behind those dark eyes may hold a sense of self, a private inner world, and an awareness that is far richer than many people ever imagine. The largest land animals on Earth still move with astonishing gentleness. At first glance, it seems as though something so massive should shake the world with every step. Yet elephants often move with a softness that feels almost unbelievable. They can pass through woodland with far less noise than many smaller animals, placing each foot with care and balance. Part of that comes from the structure beneath the foot, where thick cushioned tissue spreads weight and absorbs force. Instead of hitting the ground hard, they roll through a step in a smooth, controlled way. That same control appears in the rest of the body too. A giant head turns with calm precision. A calf is nudged with care. A trunk reaches without clatter or waste. Even when a herd is walking together, the movement can seem measured and composed rather than crude. Their size inspires awe, but it is the contrast between immense power and careful motion that often leaves the deepest impression. Wild elephants can mourn their dead in ways that feel hauntingly familiar. When elephants encounter the body or bones of another elephant, their behavior can change in striking ways. They may slow down. They may reach out with their trunks and explore the skull, the tusks, or the ribs with prolonged attention. Sometimes they linger far longer than they do with the remains of other animals. No scientist can climb fully inside that moment and name exactly what they feel, so caution matters. Still, the pattern is hard to ignore. These are not random touches tossed at the landscape without meaning. In some observations, family members have stayed near a dying individual, tried to lift them, or returned to the place later. Such scenes suggest that death matters deeply in elephant society. Even if we avoid human words that reach too far, we are left with something profound. They seem to notice loss, to respond to it socially, and to treat the bodies of their own kind with unusual attention. A matriarch can guide her family using memories of drought from long ago. When rain fails across a vast landscape, survival may depend on knowledge gathered many seasons earlier. An older female at the head of a family may remember where water persisted during a bad year long before the youngest members were born. She may recall a route to a distant marsh, a river bend that lasted longer than the rest, or a shaded valley where forage held on after the plains dried out. In that sense, memory becomes geography. It becomes a living map, stored in a mind rather than on paper. Researchers have long suspected that these older leaders become especially important during environmental stress, when ordinary habits no longer work. A younger animal might follow the nearest familiar path and find only dust. An elder may lead the group somewhere unexpected, not because she is guessing, but because she has seen hardship before and remembered which places still offered hope when the world seemed empty. Elephant mothers and aunts work together to raise each newborn calf. A calf is never only the concern of one parent. From the beginning, other females in the family often crowd close, touching, watching, guarding, and sometimes helping the little one stand, move, and settle into herd life. These helpers are often called alamothers, though in practice they may be sisters, aunts, cousins, or older juveniles learning the skills of care. Their involvement changes the whole emotional shape of early life. A newborn enters not just a body-sized world of legs and trunks, but a social world ready to receive it. The mother still carries the deepest burden of feeding and protection, yet the family creates a circle of extra attention around both of them. That support matters when danger approaches, or when the mother needs to rest, feed, or move with the herd. In elephant society, care is distributed. The calf grows inside a network, not at the edge of one. Calves learn by touching, copying, and shadowing older elephants almost constantly. For a young elephant, education is not a formal lesson. It is a day-long immersion in bodies, movement, and contact. A calf follows close behind older animals, reaches out with its trunk, bumps into legs, tests objects, and watches how everyone else handles the world. That constant proximity turns the herd into a moving classroom. Feeding behavior is observed before it is mastered. Social boundaries are felt before they are understood. Even the use of the trunk arrives through trial, imitation, and repetition. But first, the calf may swing it awkwardly or get in its own way. Over time, through endless practice beside experienced adults, clumsiness gives way to skill. What makes this so fascinating is that learning happens in motion. Knowledge is not handed over once. It is absorbed through thousands of tiny encounters. Each touch becomes information. Each shadowed step becomes rehearsal for a future when the calf will have to navigate the world on its own. Elephants can reassure one another with touch after stress or alarm. After a frightening event, the response inside a herd is not only movement, it is contact. Elephants had been observed reaching toward distressed companions with their trunks, touching the mouth, face, or body in ways that seem to calm and reconnect. This matters because it suggests social support that goes beyond simple proximity. The herd does not merely regroup, it appears to comfort. Researchers studying such interactions have compared them to consolation behaviors seen in a small number of other socially complex animals. We should avoid pretending that an elephant's emotions are identical to ours, yet the pattern is hard to miss. After tension, there is often a filiative touch. After alarm, there can be closeness rather than avoidance. In a world where danger can come suddenly, that kind of response may strengthen bonds and restore stability. The result is moving because it reveals not just intelligence, but a form of care expressed through the body, quietly and directly. Their rumbles can pass through dense forest long before the animals appear. In a thick forest, vision loses authority. Trees break the line of sight, undergrowth crowds every opening, and sound begins to matter more than shape. This is where elephants can seem almost supernatural. Long before a body comes into view, low calls may already be moving through the vegetation, sliding between trunks, carrying presence through a world that hides the speaker. Forest elephants in particular are famous for their secrecy, yet secrecy does not mean silence. Acoustic contact may arrive first, announcing that enormous animals are near even when the eye can find nothing at all. That creates a strange reversal of expectation. Usually we trust sight more than sound. With elephants in dense habitat, the ear may know first. It is one reason their world feels larger than whatever is visible in a single moment. The unseen landscape is still inhabited, still active, and still threaded with communication that reaches you before the animal itself does. Elephants may pause quietly around the bones of other elephants. There is something arresting about the way elephants sometimes react to old remains. A skull or tusk on the ground can draw them in with unusual focus. They may investigate slowly with the trunk, tracing surfaces that once belonged to a life much like their own. This is not the same response they give to every object in the landscape. Again and again, observers have noted a special attention directed toward elephant bones in particular. The exact meaning remains uncertain, and that uncertainty should stay with us. Still, mystery does not make the behavior less powerful. If anything, it deepens it. Here are animals encountering traces of their own kind and responding with deliberation, not indifference. The scene feels almost archaeological. It is as though the living pause before the material evidence of another elephant's existence. Even without easy conclusions, that moment lingers in the mind because it suggests recognition stretching across absence. A single trunk can smell water, food, family, and danger at once. The world of an elephant is saturated with scent in ways that are hard for humans to imagine. air does not arrive empty. It arrives crowded with information. With each sweep of the trunk, an elephant can sample clues about who has passed nearby, what plants are worth eating, whether predators or humans are close, and where vital resources may be hidden. The trunk is not simply a nose extended. It is a highly mobile sensory instrument that can lift scent from the ground, the breeze, vegetation, dung, and the bodies of other elephants. That power shapes daily life from beginning to end. A greeting may involve scent. A decision about travel may involve scent. A warning may begin with scent before any sound is made. This means the landscape is readable in a way that escapes us almost completely. What looks empty to human senses may, to an elephant, be full of signals layered over one another in rich and urgent detail. Elephant ears reveal identity, age, and even scars from a lifetime. To human observers who know what to look for, the ear can become almost like a signature. Its outline, tears, holes, folds, and worn edges often differ from one individual to the next, allowing researchers and guides to identify elephants without collars or tags. Over years, the ear records experience. Branches can rip it. Fights can mark it. Time can change its edge. So the broad flapping surface that helps an elephant live in heat can also become a visible archive of that elephant's past. In field studies, photographs of the ears are often among the most valuable tools for recognizing individuals across long periods. That makes every animal easier to follow as a life rather than a statistic. One torn notch here, one rounded gap there, and suddenly a stranger becomes someone known. It is a wonderful example of how personality and biography can become legible on the body if we learn to pay close attention. Elephants make highways through forests that other animals later use. When elephants move through thick vegetation, they do not simply pass through it. They change it. Over time, repeated journeys press down plants, break obstructing stems, and open usable routes through places that might otherwise be slow, tangled, and difficult to cross. Those paths can become valuable to many other creatures, from antelope and wild pigs to smaller animals moving undercover. The trail first opened by immense bodies may later guide feet, hooves, and paws that never could have made it so easily on their own. In some landscapes, these routes help shape how life flows through the forest, almost like an invisible map turned physical by repeated use. It is a striking thought. An elephant family heads somewhere for its own reasons, perhaps feeding or traveling, and behind that journey remains a corridor that quietly benefits an entire community. They do not only inhabit the forest, they help make it passable. By knocking down trees, elephants can reshape an entire landscape. To a person seeing a broken tree, it can look like destruction. In ecological terms, it can be transformation. When elephants push over trunks, snap branches, or strip bark, they alter the balance between woodland and open ground. That can change which plants thrive, how much light reaches the soil, and which animals find the habitat suitable afterward. In some places, repeated browsing by elephants helps prevent trees from taking over open country. In others, heavy pressure can thin woody cover and make the land feel visibly different across time. This makes elephants powerful agents of change, not because they plan landscapes in any conscious way, but because their feeding and movement have outsized consequences. A place with elephants may grow differently from a place without them. That is what makes them so ecologically remarkable. Their appetite does not stop at nutrition. It reaches outward, influencing the very shape and character of the land. Seeds swallowed by elephants can travel miles before reaching fertile ground. An elephant feeding on fruit is also becoming a transport system. Seeds that pass through the gut may be carried far from the parent tree before being deposited in a new location. often packaged with nutrient-rich dung that helps give them a strong start. This matters especially in landscapes where distance can decide survival. A seed dropped beneath its parent may face intense competition, shade, or hungry predators waiting nearby. A seed carried away has a better chance of reaching open space and establishing somewhere new. Because elephants roam widely, they can connect plant populations across surprising distances. In effect, they help move the future of the forest from one place to another. That makes every feeding journey more than a meal. It becomes a botanical relay. The elephant eats for itself, yet the consequences extend far beyond its own body, carrying plant life across the land one digestive passage at a time. Some forests depend on elephants to spread the seeds of giant trees. Not all seeds can hitch a ride on the wind, and not all fruits can be handled by small animals. Some tropical trees produce large seeds wrapped in heavy, appealing fruit that seems designed for a big-bodied partner. Elephants are among the few animals capable of swallowing such fruits whole, carrying the seeds away and releasing them somewhere new. In that relationship, the tree gains mobility through the body of a giant. Remove the elephant, and the tree may still stand for a time, but its next generation may struggle to spread as effectively. Over decades, that can alter the composition of the forest itself. This is one of the most fascinating things about elephants. Their role is not only visible in footprints and broken branches, it is hidden in future trunks, future shade, and future canopies. Some of tomorrow's forest begins inside the gut of a traveler moving through the trees today. Elephants use low vibrations to communicate across astonishing distances through the ground. An elephant does not have to rely on air alone to send a message. Part of its world travels through the earth itself. When low calls or powerful movements create vibrations, those signals can move along the ground and reach other elephants far away. Evidence suggests they may detect this information through sensitive structures in their feet and trunks, almost as though the land becomes a giant communication network beneath them. Imagine standing in open country while a conversation is passing under you, unheard and unfelt by human senses, yet clear enough for another elephant to react. A distant herd may shift direction. A bull may pause. A family may gather. This turns the landscape into more than scenery. It becomes a medium for social life. To us, ground often seems solid and silent. To elephants, it may also be a carrier of warnings, location cues, and contact that stretches beyond the limits of sight. Elephants help create clearings where sunlight lets new life surge upward. Dense vegetation can lock light away from the ground, and in many forests, light is one of the most precious resources of all. When elephants feed heavily in one area, push through thickets, or open space by damaging woody growth, they can create clearings that change the local environment almost immediately. Sunlight pours in. New shoots rise quickly. Different plant species seize the chance to grow. Then other animals respond as well, because fresh growth attracts grazers, browsers, and all the predators and scavengers linked to them. A patch that was once shaded and closed can become lively and crowded with new activity. These openings are not permanent in every case. Many change, fill, and shift again with time. That temporary quality is part of their power. Elephants help create a moving mosaic of habitats, each at a different stage, and that variety gives many forms of life room to thrive side by side. In dry places, elephants can dig wells that benefit many other species. During hard, dry periods, an elephant may do something that looks almost miraculous. At a place where the surface appears barren, it begins to dig. Sand is tossed aside. The trunk probes. A shallow hole deepens, and eventually water starts to collect from below. For the elephant, this can mean survival. For the rest of the landscape, it can mean opportunity. Other animals often arrive later to drink from those excavated wells, including species that could never have opened the ground themselves. Birds may gather at the edges. Hoofed mammals may step in after the elephant leaves. In this way, one animal's search for water can temporarily reshape access for an entire local community. There is something extraordinary about that. In a season defined by scarcity, the strength and persistence of one thirsty giant can expose a hidden reserve and make the land more livable for many smaller lives gathered around it. Their daily movements can connect habitats across huge stretches of land. An elephant does not experience the landscape as a set of isolated patches. It moves between feeding areas, resting places, water sources, shade, mineral sites, and social meeting points, often over very large distances. By doing so, it links habitats that might otherwise seem separate. Ecologists sometimes speak of connectivity, which is the degree to which living things can move through a landscape rather than getting trapped in fragments. Elephants embody that idea in motion. Their roots can tie woodland to river, forest to clearing, and one protected area to another. As they travel, they also move nutrients, seeds, and ecological influence across those boundaries. This is why blocked corridors can be such a serious problem. Fences, roads, and development do not just interrupt a journey. They break connections that have ecological consequences far beyond a single herd. Where elephants still move freely, the land remains threaded together by those long, repeated passages. Elephant dung is a traveling ecosystem full of seeds, insects, and life. What an elephant leaves behind is not waste in any empty sense. Fresh dung can be a banquet, a nursery, and a launch point for new growth all at once. Seeds embedded within it may find moisture and nutrients. Insects arrive quickly, drawn to the rich material. Beetles can roll it, bury it, feed on it, and help recycle its contents into the soil. Microbes get to work. Small creatures exploit the opportunity. What looked like an ending becomes the beginning of multiple other processes. That is one of the marvels of ecology. Life keeps handing itself onward. Because elephants eat so much plant matter and move across large areas, their dung becomes a recurring pulse of resources scattered through the landscape. It nourishes the ground, supports invertebrates, and helps plants begin again. Even here, in something people might dismiss at a glance, elephants reveal their scale. Their influence continues after each step, meal, and passage. Where elephants vanish, whole ecosystems can slowly begin to change. The loss of elephants is not always dramatic at first. A place can still look green, still sound alive, and still seem intact to a casual eye. Yet over years, subtle absences begin to accumulate. Some trails close. Certain seeds stop traveling so far. Vegetation shifts in structure. Openings appear less often, or woody plants thicken where browsing once held them in check. Species that relied, directly or indirectly, on elephant activity may begin to lose opportunities they once had. This is what makes ecological loss so unsettling. The disappearance of one animal can ripple outward quietly, altering many other relationships over time. The forest or savanna does not simply lose a resident. It loses a force that helped organize movement, growth, and access. The transformation may be slow enough to escape notice in a single season. Across decades, though, the difference can become profound, leaving a landscape that functions in a markedly altered way. They are not just animals in ecosystems, they are architects of them. Some species fit into an environment. Elephants help build the conditions other species live within. That is why the word architect feels so apt. Through movement, feeding, digging, dispersal, clearing, and sheer physical presence, They influence the structure and function of entire habitats. They open roots. They redistribute plant life. They alter vegetation patterns. They create opportunities that other species then occupy. Put all those roles together, and a larger picture comes into view. This is not merely a charismatic animal wandering through a background called nature. It is one of the great makers of that background. When elephants persist, landscapes often retain processes that would otherwise weaken or disappear. When they are lost, those processes can fade with them. That is a breathtaking level of importance for any living creature to hold. To understand elephants properly, we have to stop seeing them as passengers in the natural world and start seeing them as shapers of it. Elephant trunks can act like snorkels while crossing deep water. When an elephant enters water that rises above its shoulders, the trunk takes on one of its most surprising roles. Lifted above the surface, it becomes a breathing tube, allowing the animal to keep moving while much of the body is submerged. It is one of those moments when elephant anatomy stops seeming merely impressive and starts seeming almost improbable. A structure used for feeding, touching, lifting, smelling, and calling can also serve during river crossings like a built-in snorkel. That ability matters in landscapes where swollen rivers, floodplains, and channels must sometimes be crossed to reach food or safety. To watch it is to see adaptation, working with elegant simplicity. The great rounded back disappears into the water. Only the tip of the trunk remains above, drawing air from the open world while the rest of the body pushes forward below. Even in the water, the elephant remains unmistakably itself, inventive, capable, and strangely graceful. Despite their size, elephants are surprisingly strong and graceful swimmers. People often assume that something so heavy must struggle in deep water, yet elephants can be excellent swimmers. Once buoyancy helps support that immense body, the movement changes. Instead of the measured steps of land travel, there is a smooth, sustained progress, driven by powerful limbs and steady coordination. They can cover impressive distances this way, and there are records of elephants crossing broad channels and reaching islands that seem astonishingly far for such large mammals. The trunk may stay raised for breathing, but the rest of the body works with calm efficiency beneath the surface. What makes this so captivating is the contrast. On land, they already seem monumental. In water, they reveal another side, one that is fluid rather than grounded. The same animal that can shake trees and leave deep prints in dust can also move through open water with control and endurance. It is a reminder that elephants are less limited by size than we often imagine. Some island elephants of the past evolved into surprisingly small forms. Not all elephants in history were giants. On certain islands, ancient elephant relatives took an evolutionary path in the opposite direction and became much smaller than their mainland kin. This phenomenon is known as island dwarfism, and it happens when large animals become isolated in places with limited space, fewer predators, and restricted food supplies. Over many generations, natural selection can favor smaller bodies that require less energy. The result is wonderfully strange. Creatures belonging to a lineage famous for enormity could shrink into forms that seem almost toy-like by comparison, though they were perfectly real. Fossils from islands in the Mediterranean and elsewhere preserve evidence of these reduced elephants, some far smaller than any living species. It is a marvelous lesson in how flexible evolution can be. We think of elephants as symbols of size itself, yet their family history includes lineages shaped by constraint, isolation, and the logic of small worlds surrounded by sea. Mammoths were elephants' close relatives, not some completely separate beast. Popular imagination often places mammoths in a different category, as though they were creatures from another branch of life entirely. In truth, they belong very close to modern elephants on the family tree. They were not simply giant hairy monsters from the Ice Age with no living connection. They were proboscideans, part of the same broader lineage, and genetically they were especially close to Asian elephants. That relationship changes how we see them. Instead of standing apart as fantasy animals, mammoths become recognizable kin, shaped by cold climates rather than tropical heat. Their long hair, high shoulders, and curved tusks were dramatic adaptations. Yet beneath those features was a body plan still tied to the same deep ancestry. This makes the past feel less remote. The elephant walking today carries echoes of that lost world within its own lineage. When we think of mammoths properly, we are not leaving elephants behind. We are following their family into prehistory. Ancient elephant relatives once lived across Africa, Europe, Asia, and the Americas. Today, living elephants occupy only a fraction of the range once held by their wider family. In the deep past, proboscideans spread across vast parts of the world, with different forms appearing in Africa, Europe, Asia, and North and Central America. That means elephant-kin once walked through environments that would surprise many modern viewers, from temperate woodlands to open plains far from anything we now associate with elephant country. This global history gives the family a scale that feels almost epic. They were not fringe curiosities tucked into one corner of the planet. They were a major presence across continents, adapting again and again to local conditions. Fossils from many regions preserve pieces of that story, showing how varied the lineage became over time. The modern distribution can make elephants seem geographically limited. Their ancestry tells the opposite story. They come from a family that once ranged widely enough to leave traces across much of the world. The straight-tusked elephant may have been larger than many people imagine. Among the great elephants of the past, one of the most astonishing is the straight-tusked elephant, a prehistoric species that lived in parts of Eurasia and reached extraordinary size. Some estimates suggest that the largest males rivaled or exceeded the mass of the biggest mammoths, making them among the most immense land mammals of their time. Their tusks, as the name suggests, were less dramatically curved than those of mammoths, giving them a different and imposing profile. It is easy for such an animal to be overshadowed in the public imagination because mammoths have the stronger cultural afterlife. Yet the straight-tusked elephant deserves a sense of wonder all its own. Imagine an elephant even larger than the giant forms many people already struggle to picture, moving through ancient landscapes with a scale that would have seemed almost unreal. Prehistory was not only strange, it was vast, and this species embodies that magnificently. Fossil tusks reveal that elephant history reaches back millions of years. A tusk pulled from ancient sediment is more than a dramatic object. It is a message from a lineage that stretches far beyond recorded history. Fossil tusks, along with teeth, skull fragments, and entire skeletons, help scientists trace the elephant family deep into the past across millions of years of evolutionary change. Each discovery adds another point to a long, unfolding story, showing where certain forms lived, how large they were, and how their anatomy shifted over time. Tusks are especially evocative because they feel so unmistakably elephantine, even when they come from species no human ever saw alive. To hold that evidence in the mind is to feel time open beneath the modern world. The living elephant becomes not just an animal of the present, but the latest chapter in an ancient succession of forms. The story written in fossil ivory is one of persistence, transformation, and astonishing depth across geological time. Early elephant relatives looked nothing like the animals we know today. Go far enough back in the elephant family tree, and the resemblance becomes startlingly faint. Some early proboscideans were much smaller, with shorter faces, different body proportions, and none of the familiar grandeur of towering tusked giants striding across open country. They might have lived in swampy habitats, browsed on soft vegetation, and carried only the first hints of the features that later defined the group. This is one of the delights of evolution. It rarely begins with the finished icon we recognize. Instead, it works through forms that can seem awkward, experimental, or almost unrelated until you trace the anatomy carefully. The trunk was not always a trunk in the modern sense. Tusks were not always grand, sweeping structures. Size itself changed enormously. So when we think of elephants as timeless, we miss something beautiful. Their family history includes creatures so unfamiliar that you might never guess they belonged to the same extraordinary lineage. Some ancient elephant cousins lived in swamps, while others crossed open grasslands. The elephant family did not succeed by clinging to one way of life. Different branches adapted to very different habitats, from wet lowlands thick with aquatic plants to broad open country where travel and grazing demanded another kind of body and behavior. Some early forms are thought to have spent much of their time in marshy environments, feeding in conditions that would have suited shorter limbs and less specialized trunks. Later relatives entered drier and more open settings, where taller bodies, new teeth, and changing skull shapes helped them handle a different menu and a different world. This habitat diversity is part of what makes their history so exciting. The family was not static. It kept experimenting. Across millions of years, elephant kin occupied ecological roles that shifted with climate, geography, and vegetation. The result is a lineage that feels less like one animal repeated through time and more like a grand procession of related possibilities. Elephant evolution changed noses, teeth, size, and even entire ways of living. The familiar elephant body is the product of an immense evolutionary journey. Over time, the family transformed in multiple directions at once. Noses lengthened into trunks capable of extraordinary versatility. Teeth changed shape as diet shifted and environment altered. Body size expanded in many lineages, though not all, producing giants in some places and smaller forms in others. Limbs, skulls, and feeding strategies all changed as the world itself changed around them. What makes this so compelling is that evolution did not merely decorate a basic elephant template. It repeatedly reworked how these animals moved, ate, sensed, and survived. A swamp-dwelling ancestor and a modern savanna elephant may belong to the same larger story, yet they inhabited life in profoundly different ways. That is the real wonder here. The elephant is not a fixed design carried unchanged from deep time. It is the latest result of a lineage that kept reinventing itself across ages. Asian elephants have smaller ears, but their social lives are no less rich. Size can fool us when we compare species. Asian elephants may carry smaller ears and often a more compact outline than their African relatives, yet their social world is every bit as intricate and absorbing. Families still depend on memory, long bonds, shared movement, and the patient transfer of knowledge from older animals to younger ones. Females keep track of one another across years. Calves grow inside a web of protection and correction. Social rank, familiarity, and changing life stages all shape daily interactions in ways that reward close attention. In forested parts of Asia, this complexity can be easy to miss because visibility is often limited and human observers do not get the broad panoramic views that savanna landscapes allow. Yet the hidden quality of that life does not make it simpler. It makes it more mysterious. Behind the leaves and shadows, relationships are unfolding with depth, subtlety, and long memory. African forest elephants are more secretive and harder to study than savanna elephants. If savanna elephants often seem like grand public figures of the animal world, forest elephants can feel like private legends moving behind a curtain. They live in dense Central African forests where sightlines collapse, roads are few, and observation is difficult even for seasoned researchers. That means much of what scientists know about them has had to come from indirect evidence, such as dung, footprints, sound recordings, camera traps, and genetic samples gathered from the forest floor. They are not necessarily behaving with deliberate secrecy in a human sense. Rather, their habitat grants them concealment, and that concealment has shaped how slowly knowledge about them has grown. For years, people often treated them as a lesser-known version of the savanna elephant. Modern research has made clear that they are distinct and deeply important in their own right. The difficulty of studying them only adds to their fascination. They remain among the great elusive giants of Earth. Forest elephants move through dense jungle with astonishing quiet for their size. A rainforest seems like the last place an animal of several tons should be able to disappear, yet forest elephants do exactly that. They pass through thickets, vines, trunks, and shadowed undergrowth with a level of quiet that feels almost impossible once you grasp their size. Part of the effect comes from careful foot placement and from bodies built to navigate complex terrain without constant collision or noise. Part of it comes from the forest itself, which absorbs, scatters, and hides so much. You may hear a faint rustle, a low sound, or a branch shift, but not the crashing spectacle you would expect from such bulk. Then suddenly there is an elephant where moments before there seemed to be only vegetation. That contrast is unforgettable. These are not awkward giants forcing their way through a hostile world. They are practiced inhabitants of it, moving with a level of control that makes the jungle seem even deeper and more enchanted. Savanna elephants can be seen from afar, but forest elephants often vanish. Habitat changes not just how an animal lives, but how it exists in the imagination. On open savannas, elephants can appear almost monumental against the horizon, visible at great distance as they cross grassland under a wide sky. In forests, that certainty disappears. A forest elephant may be only a short distance away and still remain unseen, dissolved into layers of leaf, trunk, darkness, and tangled growth. This difference matters because visibility shapes the whole human experience of a species. One becomes the giant everyone thinks they know. The other becomes a rumor in green light, present yet withheld. That banishing quality is one reason forest elephants feel so extraordinary. Their bodies are massive, yet their environment can erase them from view in moments. It reminds us that size alone does not guarantee spectacle. Sometimes the most impressive creatures on Earth are hidden not because they are rare in the mythic sense, but because the world around them knows how to keep them. Elephant societies are layered, with families, allies, and wider social networks. It is tempting to picture an elephant herd as a simple unit, one family moving through the landscape together and little more. In reality, their social world can extend far beyond the group visible in a single moment. There are close family units at the core, often made up of related females and their young. Beyond that, there can be preferred companions, neighboring groups, repeated associations, and long-term familiarity that links one family to others across time and space. Some researchers describe these arrangements as fission-fusion societies, because groups may split apart and come together again depending on food, season, breeding, or local conditions. That means elephant society has both stability and flexibility. Bonds endure, but gatherings change. Individuals recognize more than just their nearest companions. They are living inside a wider social map. The deeper you look, the less a herd resembles a single cluster, and the more it resembles a network of memory, alliance, and shifting connection. Males and females often live very different social lives as adults. Childhood begins in the family, but adulthood can take bulls and cows in very different directions. Adult females usually remain within maternal society, embedded in the long-lasting structure of related females and their offspring. Their daily lives are shaped by kinship, calf care, coordination, and the accumulated authority of older leaders. Adult males often become more independent over time. They may travel alone for periods or form looser associations with other bulls, especially around resources or breeding opportunities. This difference does not mean one sex is social and the other is not. It means sociality takes different forms. A female may live inside a tightly knit family core. A male may move through a broader and more fluid world of temporary companions, rivals, mentors, and strategic encounters. That split makes elephant society more varied than many people first assume. There is not one standard adult life. There are multiple paths, each shaped by age, sex, status, and circumstance. Young bulls may leave home, but they do not leave elephant society. When a young male begins spending less time with his birth family, it can look like a clean break. In truth, it is more like a social transition. He is leaving one form of elephant life and entering another. Instead of constant closeness with mothers, sisters, and younger calves, he starts navigating a world of older males, shifting associations, and new rules about status and behavior. He may wander more widely. He may spend time alone. Yet he is not becoming disconnected in any absolute sense. He is learning how to belong in a different part of the elephant world. This is an important distinction because it saves us from imagining male life as lonely exile. Young bulls still watch, assess, compete, and learn from others. Their society is simply less centered on the maternal group. What changes is not the need for social knowledge, but the kind of social knowledge required to become a capable adult male. Older bulls can calm younger males simply by being present. There is something remarkable about the stabilizing power of experience. In elephant society, mature males do more than compete for access to mates. Their presence can influence the behavior of younger bulls in ways that help keep social life more controlled. Studies and field observations have suggested that when older bulls are present, younger males may behave with less reckless aggression. Without those older individuals, trouble can increase. That makes elder bulls more than impressive bodies with long memories. They become regulators of temperament and social tone. They model what dominance looks like when it is fully developed and no longer uncertain. A younger bull does not need a lecture from them. Their mere presence can be enough to alter the atmosphere. This is one of the most compelling things about elephants. Wisdom and age matter in both sexes, though in different ways. Authority is not only about force. It can also reside in who has already learned how to carry power. Elephant adolescence is long, complicated, and full of social learning. Between helpless calfhood and confident adulthood lies a long middle passage, and in elephants that period matters enormously. Adolescence is not a brief bridge. It is an extended season of practice, testing, and adjustment. Young elephants are bigger than before and more capable than before, yet they are still learning how to interpret the social world around them. They explore rank, boundaries, play, independence, and risk. Their bodies are changing, but their judgment is still under construction. That makes this stage especially fascinating because so much future behavior is being shaped in real time. A young elephant must learn when to press forward and when to yield, whom to follow and when to question, how to feed more efficiently, and how to move through conflict without creating unnecessary danger. It is easy to romanticize elephant wisdom as something fully formed. Adolescence reminds us that wisdom has to be built first, through years of experience. A herd's personality can shift, depending on who is leading it. Leadership in elephants is not an abstract title. It changes how a group behaves on the ground. One matriarch may be bold with new situations, quick to investigate, and steady in tense moments. Another may be more cautious, turning away sooner or keeping the group tighter in uncertain places. Because of that, the overall feel of a herd can shift depending on which experienced individual is making the key decisions. Researchers and long-term observers often note these consistent differences, which suggests that elephant groups are not identical units stamped from the same mold. They carry a social character that emerges from the dispositions and histories of the individuals within them. This is thrilling because it moves elephants beyond stereotype. They are not only representatives of a species. They are members of particular societies shaped by particular lives. Change the leader, and the same family may seem more relaxed, more wary, more decisive, or more exploratory than before. Elephants can use branches as tools to swat flies or scratch. Tool use feels especially striking in an animal so large because we often imagine giants relying only on strength. Elephants prove otherwise. They've been seen picking up branches and using them to swat at biting flies, or to reach places on the body that a trunk alone cannot easily scratch. In those moments, the branch stops being part of the landscape and becomes an object with a purpose. That shift matters. It means the elephant is not just reacting to irritation. It is selecting something external and turning it into an extension of its own body. The action may look simple, yet the mental step behind it is impressive. The animal must notice a need, identify a suitable object, and use it in a directed way. It is another reminder that intelligence does not always arrive wrapped in spectacle. Sometimes it appears in a quiet decision, made by a vast animal that knows how to borrow the world and put it to work. They sometimes modify sticks or vegetation before putting them to use. Using an object is impressive enough, but sometimes elephants go a step further. They alter the object first. Researchers and observers have reported cases where an elephant stripped leaves from a branch before using it, or adjusted vegetation in a way that made it more useful for a particular task. That detail is fascinating because it moves beyond simple grabbing. The animal is not just taking what is there, it is preparing it. In human terms, it begins to feel like the faint outline of craftsmanship. Not craftsmanship with sharp tools and deliberate blueprints, of course, but with foresight. The elephant seems to recognize that an object in its original form is less effective than one that has been changed. That is a subtle kind of problem solving, and subtle intelligence is often the most exciting kind. It suggests a mind that can imagine an improved version of something before using it, then bring that improved version into being through action. Captive elephants have solved puzzles that require planning, patience, and cooperation. In carefully designed tests, elephants have revealed a style of intelligence that goes beyond quick reactions. Some tasks require them to wait rather than rush, to understand that two individuals must act together, or to recognize that a useful object has to be moved into place before a reward can be reached. In one especially memorable kind of experiment, elephants had to pull two ends of a rope at the same time in order to bring food closer. If only one pulled, the chance was lost. That meant success depended on noticing the partner, timing the action, and resisting the urge to act too soon. Those are demanding mental steps. They point to planning, self-control, and awareness of another individual's role. What makes this so compelling is not just that elephants can solve puzzles. It is the manner in which they do it. They often seem deliberate, observant, and capable of thinking through the structure of a problem before acting. An elephant can learn routes, routines, and individual voices with striking accuracy. Memory in elephants is not an abstract reputation. It shows itself in daily precision. An elephant can learn the shape of a route across a large landscape, remember the timing of recurring events, and distinguish familiar voices from unfamiliar ones with impressive consistency. In human care, some have learned complex routines involving specific people, places, and sequences of actions. In the wild, that same mental ability helps track pathways, opportunities, and social relationships across changing conditions. What is so striking is the breadth of it. This is not one narrow skill repeated again and again. It is a flexible memory system that handles space, sound, timing, and individuality all at once. An elephant does not merely remember that something happened. It can remember who was involved, where it took place, and how that information might matter later. That kind of mental organization helps explain why their world seems so socially rich and so deeply shaped by experience. They can remember former companions even after many years apart. Few things make elephant memory feel more moving than reunion. There have been cases in which elephants separated for long periods appeared to recognize one another when brought back together, responding with heightened attention, vocalization, and contact that suggested the old bond had not been erased by time. The exact inner experience of recognition remains beyond our reach, but the outward signs can be powerful. It is one thing to remember a path or a place. It is another to hold on to the social reality of another individual across years of absence. That tells us something profound about the way elephant relationships are stored in the mind. Companions do not simply vanish when they disappear from view. They may remain part of a lasting internal world of known individuals, carried forward through time, until the meeting happens again. In those moments, memory stops looking like a cold mental filing system and starts feeling deeply alive. Elephants seem to notice when another elephant needs help reaching something. In some observations and experimental settings, elephants have shown behavior that looks remarkably like practical social awareness. One individual may appear unable to reach an object, solve a task, or achieve a goal alone, and another may step in with actions that make success possible. We should be careful not to romanticize every interaction as heroic cooperation, yet the pattern is still intriguing. The helper does not seem to be moving at random. It appears to respond to the situation of the other elephant in a way that improves the outcome. That suggests attention to more than personal desire. It suggests the ability to track what another individual is trying to do and to act in relation to that effort. For a social species, that kind of awareness is enormously valuable. It supports coordination, problem-solving, and social cohesion. It also makes elephant interaction feel wonderfully layered, as though each individual is reading not just the world, but each other. Some have worked together spontaneously to solve tasks neither could solve alone. Cooperation becomes most impressive when it is not forced step by step, but emerges naturally from the situation itself. Elephants have shown moments of this kind where two individuals achieve a result together but one alone could not manage. The important part is not just simultaneous action. It is the sense that each animal's behavior fits with the other in a meaningful way. One waits, another adjusts. A shared outcome becomes possible only when both contribute at the right time. This matters because it suggests more than simple herd living. It points toward coordination shaped by attention and responsiveness. In a wild animal, that is a thrilling thing to witness. It tells us that social intelligence can become functional in practical problem solving, not just in bonding or conflict. The elephants are not merely side by side. They are behaving in relation to a common challenge. In that moment, cooperation becomes visible as an active thinking process. Elephant play is not random chaos. It helps build skill and trust. Play can look messy from the outside, all movement and noise and sudden turns, yet in many animals it serves serious purposes. With elephants, that seriousness hides inside exuberance. Chasing, mock pushing, trunk wrestling, splashing, and playful sparring help young animals test strength, timing, and boundaries without the full risks of adult conflict. Just as important, These interactions help build familiarity and trust. A young elephant learns how hard is too hard, how another individual responds, and how to recover after a burst of excitement. Social play becomes practice in reading others. Physical play becomes practice in managing a powerful body. This is why it matters that play is not dismissed as mere entertainment. It helps shape future competence. The calf who tumbles through a game today is also rehearsing coordination, restraint, and relationship. Under the appearance of fun, something profoundly useful is taking shape. Joy becomes one of the ways elephant society prepares itself for life. Calves wrestle, chase, and tumble as they rehearse the serious future. There is a wonderful contrast in young elephants. Their play can seem full of comic energy, yet hidden inside it are the first drafts of adult behavior. A calf that shoves at a companion is testing balance and strength. One that chases and dodges is learning speed, turning, and the timing of pursuit. Trunks tangle, bodies bump, feet skid. Through all of it, muscles and judgment are being educated together. That matters because adult elephant life demands both power and control. A large body must be directed with care. Social signals must be read accurately. Competitive moments must be handled without constant escalation. Play gives calves a lower-stakes arena in which to make mistakes and improve. What looks like roughhousing is also training. Not formal training imposed from above, but learning that emerges through repeated action. In that sense, the serious future begins long before adulthood arrives. It begins in games, collisions, and delighted young confusion. Curiosity drives elephants toward new objects, scents, and sometimes surprising risks. An elephant is not only cautious and wise, it can also be deeply inquisitive. New smells, unfamiliar shapes, strange sounds, and unexpected objects often draw investigation rather than immediate retreat. The trunk reaches out. The body angles closer. The animal samples the unknown through touch, scent, and attention. This curiosity is part of what makes elephants so captivating, because it gives them a certain exploratory boldness. They do not simply move through the world on fixed instincts. They examine it. Of course, curiosity can be costly as well as useful. Approaching something novel can expose an elephant to danger if that object is tied to people, conflict, or hidden threat. Yet without curiosity, flexible intelligence would have far less room to operate. New opportunities would remain undiscovered. Learning would narrow. What we see instead is a creature often drawn toward mystery, testing the edges of the unfamiliar. That restless interest gives elephant life a sense of ongoing encounter. Elephant pregnancies last nearly 2 years, among the longest on Earth. Before a calf ever touches the ground, an extraordinary amount of time has already been invested in its future. Elephant pregnancy lasts for about 22 months, which places it among the longest known for any land animal. That long wait is not a biological extravagance for its own sake. It reflects how much development must happen before birth in a species built for complex movement, large brains, and immediate social attachment. A newborn has to arrive ready to stand, follow, nurse, and begin learning in a demanding world almost at once. The body it enters is huge, the family around it is active, and danger does not pause for infancy. So growth begins long before the first breath. In a sense, elephant childhood starts in deep preparation. By the time a calf appears beside its mother, nearly 2 years of hidden work have already gone into producing a young life capable of joining one of the most intricate societies in nature. A newborn calf enters a family already waiting, watching, and helping. The arrival of a calf is not a private moment hidden between mother and infant alone. Often it unfolds inside a ring of attention. Other females gather close. Trunks reach forward. Bodies shift into protective positions. The whole family seems to lean toward the event, as though it understands that something important has just changed. For the newborn, the first world is not open space. It is legs, warmth, movement, scent, and the immediate presence of many others. That matters because elephant life begins socially from the first moments. The calf is not introduced later into the group. It arrives directly into it. Watchful relatives may help keep danger away, encourage the little one upright, or remain nearby while it struggles through the first confusing attempts to coordinate body and balance. There is something deeply moving in that collective welcome. Life begins not in isolation, but in the midst of a community already prepared to receive it. Calves often suck their trunks at first, much like human babies suck thumbs. One of the sweetest and strangest sights in elephant infancy is the way some calves suck their own trunks. The behavior can look uncannily familiar to human eyes because it resembles the comfort many babies find in sucking a thumb or finger. In elephant calves, that habit may offer reassurance while they adjust to a body that is both astonishingly capable and frustratingly difficult to control. Imagine being born with a long, sensitive, flexible appendage attached to your face, useful for drinking, touching, smelling, lifting, and communicating, yet at first impossible to manage properly. Sucking may provide comfort in the midst of that confusion. It is a small detail, but it reveals something wonderful about early elephant life. Even in one of the largest animals on Earth, infancy still includes gestures of self-soothing, awkwardness, and familiar vulnerability. Grandeur comes later. At the beginning, there is still a baby trying to feel safe inside a baffling new body. Learning to control a trunk takes time, practice, and plenty of mistakes. For an adult elephant, the trunk seems almost magical in its coordination. For a calf, it can begin as a source of confusion. The young animal has to learn how to lift it, direct it, curl it, and use it with purpose, all while the rest of life is happening at once. Early attempts can be wonderfully clumsy. A calf may swing the trunk too widely, drop what it tried to grasp, or seem to get in its own way while exploring the ground. This is what makes development so fascinating. The structure is already there, yet mastery is not. Skill has to be built through repetition. Little by little, the trunk becomes less like a loose, unpredictable extension, and more like a true instrument. That process tells us something important about elephants. Their abilities are not only inherited. Many of their most impressive capacities depend on prolonged learning. Even one of nature's greatest tools begins as something a child must slowly figure out. Baby elephants can run, stumble, and bounce with almost impossible charm. There is a special kind of delight in watching a body built for future enormity attempt its first bursts of speed. Young calves can run surprisingly early, but their movement often carries a touch of comic uncertainty. Legs seem just a little too eager for perfect coordination. Momentum arrives before balance quite catches up. The result is a style of motion that can include bouncing, skidding, sudden turns, and the occasional stumble that feels endearing rather than graceful. Yet beneath the charm lies something serious. These early runs matter. They help the calf keep up with the herd, react to alarm, and build the coordination needed for life in a moving social group. Practice begins almost immediately because it has to. The world will not slow down for inexperience. That contrast is part of what makes elephant infancy so captivating. The calf looks adorable to us, but it is also hard at work, turning awkward joy into the beginnings of competence. A calf's earliest safety comes from being surrounded by bodies and touch. In the first days and weeks of life, protection is not an abstract condition. It is physical. A calf is kept safe by proximity, by the nearness of large bodies, and by the constant information carried through contact. Adults close ranks when danger threatens. Trunks guide, steady, and reassure. The little one often remains tucked inside a living barrier of relatives whose size alone can discourage attack. This kind of safety is deeply social, yet it is also deeply tactile. The calf learns security through where it is positioned and what it feels around it. That matters because elephant life begins in motion. The herd keeps traveling, feeding, and responding to the world, so the calf must find safety not in a fixed nest or hidden den, but inside a moving circle of protectors. It is a beautiful system. Defense is carried along with the calf wherever the family goes, wrapped in warmth, vigilance, and touch. Alamothers can babysit, defend, and comfort calves that are not theirs. In elephant society, care does not stop at biological motherhood. Other females often play active roles in the lives of calves, and those roles can be surprisingly varied. A young one may be watched while its mother feeds. A nervous calf may be touched or guided by another adult. In tense moments, helpers can help shield the smallest members of the group from danger. This matters because it turns child-rearing into a shared social enterprise rather than a solitary burden. For younger females, helping may also provide valuable experience for their own future offspring. For the calf, it creates a wider field of trust and support. More than one adult becomes familiar, protective, and important. That web of care gives elephant family life much of its emotional depth. A calf is not simply tolerated by the group because it belongs to the mother. It is often actively supported by a larger circle of invested relatives whose involvement helps hold the social world together. Calves learn the herd's roots before they could ever survive alone. Long before a young elephant could find food or water independently, it is already absorbing the map of its world. Day after day, the calf travels with the herd along paths that connect feeding areas, resting places, crossings, and seasonal destinations. At first, it understands none of this in the full adult sense. It is simply following. Yet that following is education. The body learns the terrain. The senses begin to register landmarks, smells, sounds, and recurring patterns of movement. Over months and years, those repeated journeys become stored knowledge. This is one reason elephant childhood must be long. Survival depends on more than growing larger. It depends on learning where life is possible across a landscape that changes with weather, pressure, and season. A calf carried through those roots by family is, in effect, being initiated into a living geography. By the time independence comes, the world is not entirely new. It has already been walked into memory. Milk, memory, and social protection shape the earliest years of elephant life. The beginning of elephant life rests on three great supports. There is milk, which sustains the growing body. There is memory, held first by older elephants and gradually passed into the experience of the young. And there is social protection, the constant shield of family around the calf as it learns to exist in a very large and demanding world. None of these elements works alone. Nutrition without guidance would not be enough. Guidance without safety would not hold. Safety without nourishment would fail. Together they create the conditions in which a slow-growing, deeply social animal can become itself. This is what makes elephant early life feel so rich. Growth is never just physical. Every stage carries feeding, teaching, and guarding at once. The calf is being built from the outside as much as from within, shaped by what it drinks, what it witnesses, and the circle of older lives that keeps it alive long enough to learn. Losing an experienced mother can change the future of a calf. For a young elephant, a mother is far more than a source of milk. She is orientation, protection, judgment, and social connection embodied in one familiar presence. If that anchor is lost too early, the effects can run deep. The calf may face immediate risks in feeding and safety, but the longer consequences can be just as serious. A mother carries practical knowledge about movement, timing, threats, and relationships. She helps interpret the herd's rhythm. She provides emotional stability in moments of stress. Without that steady guide, the young elephant may grow up with gaps that are not easily replaced, even inside a supportive group. Other females can help, and sometimes they make an enormous difference. But the loss still matters. In a species where learning stretches across years, removing an experienced mother can alter development in lasting ways. It changes not only what the calf has lost today, but what it may struggle to gain tomorrow. Must can transform a bull's behavior, chemistry, and status within society. At certain times in adult male life, a remarkable state called must can change almost everything about how a bull moves through the social world. Hormones rise sharply. Behavior often becomes more intense, more driven, and more focused on competition and mating. Other elephants respond to these changes too, which means must is not only an internal condition, it reshapes social relationships in visible ways. A bull who might usually pass with little notice can suddenly command far more attention from rivals and from females. His confidence may increase. His movements may become more deliberate and assertive. The whole atmosphere around him can feel altered. This is one of the most dramatic transformations in elephant biology because it turns chemistry into social force. Must reveals that the elephant body is not a stable machine running at one setting. At key moments, it can shift into another mode entirely, and society around it changes in response. During must, temporal glands stream fluid down the sides of the face. One of the clearest visible signs of must appears just behind the eyes. There, temporal glands can swell and release a dark fluid that runs down the sides of the face, leaving unmistakable streaks on an elephant already transformed by this powerful reproductive state. To anyone who knows what to look for, those marks announce that something important is happening before the animal even acts. It is a striking image because the body seems to be broadcasting internal change to the outside world. This is not decoration. It is physiology made visible. The streaming fluid often appears alongside other signs such as heightened focus and a different style of movement or social engagement. In that sense, the face becomes part of the message. Elephant biology does not always hide its turning points beneath the skin. Sometimes it writes them clearly on the surface, where rivals, potential mates, and human observers can all see that this bull is in a special and formidable condition. Powerful reproductive signals can be smelled before a bull is even seen. In elephant society, scent can arrive before the body that carries it. A bull in reproductive condition may announce himself on the air long before he comes into view, and for another elephant, that signal can be rich with meaning. The world of smell is not secondary here. It is one of the main channels through which reproductive state, identity, and readiness are assessed. A female may detect important information from a distance. A rival male may do the same. This gives the landscape a strange, invisible drama, because major social events can begin through chemistry rather than sight. A breeze carries news. A trail holds evidence. What to us might feel like empty air is, to an elephant, crowded with implications. That is part of what makes their lives so fascinating. Important encounters do not start only when two bodies meet face to face. Often they begin in advance, through signals moving silently across space toward a nose that knows how to read them. Female elephants do not choose mates randomly. Timing and status both matter. Reproduction in elephants is not a simple matter of whichever male happens to be nearby. Females come into fertile periods at particular times, and when that happens, the quality and condition of the males around them can matter a great deal. Status, size, maturity, and the bull's current reproductive state all influence the social field in which mate choice unfolds. Older, more dominant males in musth often gain an advantage, which suggests that females are not indifferent to who fathers a calf. This matters because it adds another layer of complexity to elephant society. Reproduction is not just biological timing. It is embedded in competition, assessment, and long-term life history. A female's choices play out within that wider context. The result is a system where mating is shaped by both opportunity and evaluation. That is part of why elephant life feels so richly structured. Even the creation of the next generation depends on status, readiness, and social meaning. Elephant courtship can involve scent, sound, pursuit, patience, and careful testing. Courtship in elephants is not always a sudden event. Often, it unfolds as a gradual and highly attentive process. A bull may follow a female, sample her scent, listen closely, and stay near while trying to determine whether she is approaching the right stage for mating. The female is not simply passive in this exchange. She may move away, allow closeness, resist, or respond in ways that make the interaction more selective and prolonged. What emerges is less like a simple chase and more like a negotiation carried out through bodies, chemicals, distance, and sound. Patience matters because timing matters. A bull may invest time in tracking one female and in repeatedly testing cues before the moment is right. That slow unfolding is part of the fascination. Elephant courtship is not crude inevitability. It is a sequence of assessments, adjustments, and responses that can stretch across time, revealing just how socially textured reproduction can be. Reproduction in elephants is slow, which makes every loss matter more. Some animals survive by producing large numbers of young in a short time. Elephants follow the opposite strategy. Pregnancy takes a very long time. Calves need years of care, and intervals between births can be substantial. That slow pace means each individual life carries enormous weight for the future of the population. When an elephant is lost, especially an adult female or an experienced older individual, the damage cannot be quickly replaced by a burst of rapid reproduction. Recovery takes time because elephant biology is built around investment, not speed. This makes threats such as poaching, habitat loss, and conflict especially serious. The numbers do not rebound easily. Behind every surviving elephant stands a great deal of time already spent in growth, learning, and care. Behind every new calf lies years of effort. Once you understand that, elephant conservation stops sounding like a matter of counting animals alone. It becomes a matter of respecting how slowly these lives are made. A healthy herd depends on years of survival before each calf appears. By the time a new calf joins the herd, many things have already gone right for a very long time. A mother has survived to maturity. She has found enough food and water across years of challenge. The social structure around her has remained stable enough to support reproduction and calf care. Her body has endured a long pregnancy. The landscape has stayed livable long enough for all of that to happen. In other words, one newborn represents not just one success, but a chain of successes stretching backward through time. That is what makes each calf so meaningful. It is visible proof that enough adults survived, enough knowledge endured, and enough habitat remained intact for the herd to keep renewing itself. This perspective changes how we see reproduction. A calf is not simply the beginning of one life. It is the product of years of continuity in many other lives, all of which had to hold together first. Elephant life history is built for patience, not speed. Everything about elephant development suggests a strategy of taking time. They grow slowly, mature slowly, reproduce slowly, and learn over long stretches of life rather than rushing toward quick independence. In a world that often rewards speed, elephants follow a different logic. Their success depends on endurance, memory, and extended care. A calf does not become capable in a few brief seasons. It takes years to gain the social understanding and physical control that adult life requires. Even population recovery follows this slower rhythm. This makes elephants feel almost like a challenge to the modern imagination, which often expects fast turnover and immediate results. Their biology insists that some forms of success cannot be hurried. Patience is not a weakness in this lineage. It is the design. The elephant way of life has been shaped around long preparation and delayed payoff, and that is one reason their societies can become so deep, so stable, and so vulnerable when time is cut short. Long childhoods help produce adults with memory, judgment, and social skill. A long childhood can seem inefficient if all you value is quick reproduction. In elephants, it may be one of the greatest strengths the species possesses. Years of dependence give the young time to absorb far more than food finding alone. They learn social nuance, conflict management, movement patterns, threat recognition, and the countless small rules that hold elephant life together. Judgment is not installed instantly. It is accumulated through observation, correction, and repeated experience inside a living community. Memory benefits too, because the young have time to build rich internal maps of places, individuals, and recurring situations before they are expected to function fully on their own. What emerges from that long preparation is not merely a larger body. It is a more capable mind. This is one of the most beautiful truths about elephants. Their wisdom is not romantic myth. It is something grown patiently through years of protected learning until experience becomes part of who the adult is. Elephants invest in wisdom the way some species invest in numbers. Many animals cope with danger by producing large litters, fast generations, and sheer abundance. Elephants lean toward another solution. They produce fewer young, but pour extraordinary time and energy into making each one more likely to succeed through learning, care, and social inheritance. That means the species places enormous value on experience. Older individuals matter. Childhood matters. Stable relationships matter. The result is a life strategy centered less on replacing losses quickly and more on preventing losses through knowledge and support. In that sense, wisdom becomes a form of biological investment. It is not separate from survival. It is one of the main ways survival is achieved. This makes elephants feel both majestic and precarious. A species built on long memory and deep care can be powerful across generations, yet it can also be badly harmed when those generations are broken apart. Their greatness lies not in producing many lives quickly, but in cultivating a few lives profoundly. Elephant feet spread their weight through cushions that act like living shock absorbers. Under each foot, an elephant carries one of the most ingenious weight management systems in nature. Beneath the bones lies a thick cushion of fatty and fibrous tissue that compresses under pressure, helping distribute the load of an animal that may weigh several tons. Without that support, every step would punish joints, bones, and soft tissue with far greater force. Instead, the foot works like a living shock absorber, softening impact and making long-distance travel possible for a body of extraordinary mass. This also helps explain why elephants can move with such controlled steadiness, instead of the blunt heaviness people might expect. Each step is moderated from below. The ground receives weight through a structure designed not just for support, but for resilience. Once you understand that, the foot stops seeming like a simple pillar. It becomes a sophisticated piece of engineering, built by evolution to carry a giant across years, seasons, and immense stretches of land. Their toenails matter more than most people realize for movement and health. Toenails may sound like a minor detail beside tusks, trunks, and immense ears, yet in elephants they are part of a much larger story about balance, pressure, and survival. These nails sit at the front of the foot and help protect the underlying tissues while interacting with the way weight is carried across the whole structure. When they are worn unevenly, damaged, or infected, the effects can spread far beyond the visible surface. A problem in the foot can alter gait, reduce willingness to move, and gradually affect the health of the entire body. That is why foot care has become such an important concern for elephants living under human management. In the wild, movement across varied terrain helps wear the feet naturally. In captivity, that balance can be harder to maintain. What seems small becomes significant. Even the nails of an elephant remind us that a giant life depends on many quiet details working properly together. Elephants walk in a way that keeps even great mass controlled. An elephant does not move like a scaled-up horse or a giant deer. Its gait is distinctive, shaped by the challenge of controlling tremendous weight without sacrificing steadiness or endurance. At ordinary speeds, elephants keep at least one foot on the ground, which helps maintain stability and reduces the violent impacts that a more airborne stride would create. The movement can look almost rolling, with weight transferring in a way that feels measured rather than abrupt. This is one reason they seem so composed while traveling. Even a large herd can maintain an impression of order because each body is managing mass with remarkable discipline. What fascinates biomechanists is that this is not clumsy compromise. It is elegant problem-solving. A huge land animal must avoid the mechanical chaos that size could create, and the elephant does so through a gait built for control. Their walk is not merely locomotion. It is controlled power, made visible. They cannot truly jump, which makes their athleticism even more unusual. Most people associate athletic ability with leaping, springing, and moments when the whole body leaves the ground. Elephants break that expectation. They do not truly jump in the way many other mammals can, yet that absence does not make them physically limited in any ordinary sense. Instead, it highlights how different their form of athleticism really is. They can climb slopes, push through obstacles, cover long distances, swim across deep water, and accelerate into surprisingly fast movement without ever needing the explosive airborne action that defines so many other animals. Their strength is grounded rather than spring-loaded. That grounded quality is part of their genius. Evolution did not shape them for acrobatics. It shaped them for stability, endurance, and the controlled handling of immense weight. So the fact that they cannot jump does not make them less impressive. In a way, it makes them more so, because they achieve so much physical capability without relying on one of the classic tools of mammalian motion. An elephant's spine is built for support, endurance, and steady power. Look at the back of an elephant, and you are seeing a structure designed less for flexibility and speed than for carrying a life of extraordinary mass with consistency and control. The spine must support a huge head, a heavy body, and the stresses of travel across difficult terrain, all while keeping the animal balanced and functional year after year. That requires strength and architectural stability more than dramatic bend or spring. In many ways, the elephant body is a lesson in structural discipline. Its power does not come from flashy motion, but from the ability to remain reliably load-bearing across long distances and long lifespans. The back works with the limbs, shoulders, and pelvis as part of a whole system built for endurance. That is why the elephant silhouette feels so distinctive. It carries its size not as a burden barely managed, but as a form held together by deep anatomical support, quiet strength, and lasting mechanical confidence. Their teeth wear down in sequence, like a conveyor belt through life. Elephants have solved a major problem in a very unusual way. Grinding vast quantities of tough plant matter destroys teeth over time, and for such a large herbivore that wear is relentless. Instead of relying on one permanent set of molars for life, elephants replace them in sequence. New molars move forward from the back of the jaw and gradually take over as older ones wear away at the front. The process is almost like a slow conveyor belt of chewing surfaces advancing through the mouth over many years. This is one of the most fascinating details in elephant biology because it reveals how carefully their lives are matched to their diet. They need powerful grinding teeth for a long time, but not all at once. So the body rations them across the lifespan. Each set arrives when needed, performs its task, and yields to the next. Even chewing, in an elephant, becomes a story of timing and deep adaptation. When the final molars wear out, old age can become deadly. For many animals, age brings weakness through many small failures at once. In elephants, one of the most decisive limits can come from the mouth. After successive sets of molars have done their work across a lifetime, there eventually comes a final set. When those last grinding teeth wear down too far, feeding becomes harder and harder. Tough vegetation that once sustained the body can no longer be processed efficiently. The elephant may lose condition, struggle to maintain weight, and decline as eating itself becomes less effective. There is something poignant in that ending. A creature built for strength and memory can be brought low not by a dramatic wound, but by the quiet exhaustion of the very tools it used to survive. It is a reminder that lifespan is written into anatomy. The body carries not only power, but limits. In elephants, even old age is tied closely to the practical challenge of turning plants into life. Elephant bodies are full of adaptations for heat, distance, and heavy living. To live as an elephant is to solve several enormous problems at once. The body must handle heat without overheating, travel long distances without breaking down, and support tremendous weight without losing efficiency. That is why elephant anatomy feels less like one remarkable feature and more like an entire system of coordinated solutions. The limbs are built like columns for carrying mass. The feet soften impact. The skin helps interact with sun, mud, and temperature. The large body itself influences how heat is stored and lost. Even behavior works as part of this design, from when elephants move to how they use water, dust, and shade. No single feature explains their success. It is the combination that matters. They are not giant by accident. They are giant through an intricate collection of adjustments that make such size workable in the real world. Every part contributes to the larger challenge of being immense and remaining alive. Dust baths, mud coats, and shade are vital parts of elephant survival. When an elephant throws dust over its back or covers itself in mud, it is doing far more than enjoying the moment. These behaviors are essential tools for coping with heat, sunlight, and skin irritation. A layer of mud can cool the body and later dry into a coating that helps protect against biting insects. Dust can serve a similar role, creating a loose barrier on the skin and reducing exposure on hot days. Shade matters too, especially during intense heat, because a large body cannot simply ignore the energy pouring in from the sun. What makes this so fascinating is the way behavior and environment work together. The elephant does not carry all its protection within its own tissues. It uses the landscape. Waterholes, dusty ground, and trees become part of the animal's physiological strategy. Survival is not only inside the body. It is partly a matter of knowing how to borrow the world and wear it when conditions demand it. Even a flap of the ear is part of an elegant cooling system. What can look like an idle motion is often a carefully useful one. When an elephant flaps its ears, it is helping move air across a broad, blood-rich surface where heat can escape from the body. That means the gesture has real physiological value. It is not just expression, and it is not just irritation relief. It is temperature management in motion. Blood circulating through the ears can release heat to the air, especially when the animal stands in a breeze or creates airflow with repeated flapping. The action is simple, yet the effect is powerful because the ears offer so much exposed area. This is one of the beauties of elephant biology. A dramatic visible feature is also a practical tool, doing quiet work every day to keep a giant body within safe limits. Even the smallest looking motion in an elephant can carry hidden importance, turning a graceful flap into part of a life-sustaining design. Elephants have shaped human history through war, labor, ceremony, and story. Few wild animals have entered human civilization so deeply across so many different roles. Elephants have carried kings, hauled timber, marched in armies, appeared in royal processions, and stood at the center of myths, religious symbolism, and political display. That breadth is astonishing. Most animals enter history in one narrow way, as food, threat, or companion. Elephants arrived as power made visible. Their size alone could transform the emotional atmosphere of a battlefield or a court. In some places, they became working partners in forestry and transport. In others, they became sacred or ceremonial presences linked to prestige, prosperity, or divine association. This long entanglement matters because it shows that elephants are not only ecological giants, they are cultural giants too. Human beings have projected fear, admiration, ambition, and wonder onto them for centuries. To trace elephant history is not only to study animals. It is to study what humans have long found overwhelming, useful, and unforgettable. Hannibal's elephants became legendary, even if many details remain debated. Few images from ancient history are as arresting as the idea of elephants crossing the Alps with Hannibal during the Second Punic War. Whether every later retelling captures the details accurately is another matter. Ancient sources disagree on important points, and historians still debate numbers, routes, and exactly how the journey unfolded. Yet the legend endures for good reason. The very thought of these huge animals moving through cold mountain terrain, far from the climates most people associate with them, is unforgettable. It captures the shock value elephants held in warfare, where their presence could unsettle opponents before battle even began. The historical uncertainties actually make the story more interesting rather than less. They remind us that elephants entered not only military history, but historical imagination itself. Hannibal's animals became symbols of audacity, endurance, and logistical ambition on an almost impossible scale, which is why their shadows still loom so large today. In parts of Asia, elephants have long stood for wisdom, royalty, and power. Across many Asian traditions, elephants became far more than impressive animals. They were woven into political symbolism, religious imagery, and ideas of noble authority. Kings rode them. Courts displayed them. Stories surrounded them with meaning that linked strength to dignity rather than mere force. In South and Southeast Asia especially, elephants often signaled prestige, state power, and auspicious fortune. White elephants held exceptional significance in some kingdoms, not because they were literally pure white in the way people often imagine, but because their rarity gave them ceremonial and cosmic importance. In religious art and narrative, elephants could appear as protectors, royal emblems, or beings tied to wisdom and sacred order. This tells us something profound about the human response to elephants. People did not only fear or exploit them, they also elevated them into symbols of the highest things they could imagine, including rulership, spiritual meaning, and the disciplined use of strength. Ivory once reshaped global trade at terrible cost to elephant populations. For centuries, ivory traveled through trade networks as a luxury material prized for carving, ornament, piano keys, decorative objects, and fine craftsmanship. Its smooth texture and pale beauty made it highly desirable in markets far removed from the landscapes where elephants lived. That distance is part of the tragedy. Demand in one region could drive killing in another, turning living elephants into raw material for global commerce. As trade expanded, the pressure on elephant populations intensified with devastating force. The result was not only local hunting, but vast extraction tied to empire, transport, and international markets. Entire regions felt the impact. Herds were thinned. Age structures were damaged. Fear and loss spread through populations long before modern conservation frameworks existed. Ivory was never just an object once trade accelerated around it. It became a mechanism through which wealth, taste, and violence were linked. The beauty people admired in carved ivory concealed an enormous living cost. Railways, guns, and markets changed elephant survival more than nature ever did. For most of their evolutionary history, elephants faced drought, predators, shifting habitats, and the ordinary hardships of the natural world. Then human technology changed the scale of danger. Firearms made killing more efficient. Railways and modern transport made remote areas easier to penetrate and ivory easier to move. Expanding markets turned dead elephants into profit with a speed and reach nature had never imposed. This combination altered survival more radically than climate swings or carnivores ever could. What had once been difficult became systematized. What had once been local became global. The elephant body entered industrial history not as a marvel, but as something vulnerable to extraction. That is why the modern story feels so stark. Human invention did not merely make life more complicated for elephants. It changed the entire equation by multiplying access, speed, and commercial incentive. In that new world, even ancient strength could be overwhelmed by machinery, distance, and market demand. Some elephant populations still carry the scars of intense historic hunting. Effects of heavy hunting do not end when the guns fall silent. Elephant populations can carry those consequences for generations afterward. In some places, older age classes were stripped away, leaving herds with fewer experienced leaders and altered social structure. In others, the loss of heavily tusked individuals changed the traits seen in later generations. Behavior can shift too. Populations exposed to severe persecution may become more wary of people, more prone to avoidance, or harder to observe in ways that reflect long histories of danger. This is what makes the phrase historic hunting feel misleadingly distant. The past is still present in the animals that remain. Their bodies, numbers, and social worlds may all bear traces of what happened before. Even when a landscape looks recovered on the surface, the deeper structure of elephant life may still show damage. History does not sit outside the herd. In many cases, it is still moving inside it. Modern conservation must protect not just elephants, but the roots they remember. Protecting elephants is not as simple as drawing a boundary around a patch of land and hoping that will be enough. Many elephant populations depend on movement between seasonal resources, breeding areas, resting places, and long-used travel corridors. Those routes are not random wanderings. They are remembered pathways, learned across years and often shared across generations. If roads, farms, fences, or development block them, the damage is more than physical obstruction. It interrupts inherited spatial knowledge. A herd may know where to go, yet find that the path no longer works. That mismatch can increase conflict, stress, and risk for both elephants and people. Good conservation, therefore, has to think like an elephant across space and time. It must protect continuity, not only location. The memory of a route can be as important as the habitat at either end. Save the animal while erasing the path, and something essential may still be lost. Saving elephants often means saving migrations, forests, water, and human coexistence. Elephant conservation sounds at first like a mission focused on a single beloved animal. In reality, it quickly expands into something much larger. To keep elephants alive, people often have to protect migration corridors, maintain forests, safeguard water access, reduce conflict with farmers, and create conditions where humans and elephants can share space with less danger. That makes elephant conservation unusually broad in its demands. It is about land planning, local livelihoods, governance, ecology, and long-term cooperation all at once. This is one reason elephants are such powerful conservation symbols. Their needs force us to think at landscape scale. A fence in the wrong place, a field on a corridor, or a drying river can matter as much as direct hunting pressure. When elephants do well, many other processes and species often benefit too. Saving them, therefore, becomes an exercise in protecting relationships, not just bodies. It is conservation with a very wide horizon. The future of elephants may depend on whether ancient pathways remain open. Across Africa and Asia, many elephant routes are older than any modern road, fence, or border they now encounter. These pathways were shaped by water, season, vegetation, and memory over long spans of time. For generations, herds moved along them because the landscape made sense that way. Today, many of those same routes are narrowing or disappearing under agriculture, settlement, infrastructure, and fragmentation. That matters because elephants are not infinitely flexible. They can adapt, but adaptation has limits when the geography of survival is broken apart. An ancient pathway may connect dry season refuge to wet season feeding. Block it, and the herd faces a new world with old instincts and remembered expectations. This is why the future of elephants can hinge on open passage. Conservation is not only about preventing death. It is about preserving motion. If the land stops allowing the journeys elephants were built and taught to make, survival itself becomes harder to sustain. To understand elephants fully, you must see memory as part of survival. By the time you reach the heart of elephant life, memory stops seeming like an impressive extra and starts looking like one of the main engines of survival itself. Elephants remember places, seasons, individuals, dangers, routes, and social rules, and all of that knowledge shapes what happens next. A remembered water source can matter in drought. A remembered pathway can guide a herd safely across a difficult landscape. A remembered relationship can hold a social group together. Even conflict with humans can be influenced by what elephants have learned from earlier encounters. This is what makes them so extraordinary. Their lives are not governed by instinct alone or by immediate conditions alone. They are guided by stored experience carried in living minds and passed across generations. Once you see that, the whole animal changes. The trunk, the tusks, the sheer size, all remain astonishing. Yet memory becomes the hidden force underneath them, quietly helping turn knowledge into continued life. As our journey with elephants comes to a close, we can leave them for a moment in the mind's eye, moving across riverbeds, forests, grasslands, and ancient paths remembered across generations. We have wandered through lives shaped by memory, by family, by touch, by patience, and by astonishing intelligence. We have followed calves finding their feet in a world of towering bodies and watchful care. We have glimpsed trunks that can lift, smell, search, and comfort. We have seen how whole landscapes can change beneath the passing of a herd, and how even deep history still echoes through tusks, bones, and stories carried across continents. And perhaps that is what lingers most. Not only their size, though that is wondrous enough. It is the sense that elephants move through the world with weight in more ways than one. They carry knowledge. They carry relationships. They carry the memory of water, danger, distance, and home. Now there is nothing more you need to hold on to. Let the images soften. Let the great shapes drift farther out beneath the stars. Let the footsteps grow more distant. Allow your breathing to slow, and let your thoughts loosen like dust settling after the herd has passed. And if you are still awake in a few moments, you may enjoy the next journey waiting for you on the screen. You can also subscribe, return again tomorrow night, or share this sleepy corner with someone else who might love it too. But for now, simply rest. Let the world grow softer around you. Let your body sink a little deeper. And let your mind wander no further tonight. Sleep well, and good night.